So, hi everyone, back with another video. Very busy with sessions on the table, helping players every day, so that's why I'm finding it a little bit difficult to get content up as regularly as I would like to, but I'm going to try and keep getting these videos done as much as I possibly can. Now, today's video, I'm going to do something a little bit differently. I've noted down a few questions that I get on my channel, so questions that are left by people in the comments. I've noted a few down here, and I'm going to go through these comments and just try and give my response to some of these questions. So let's have a look at the first one. So that's from Steve Coates. It says, great tips. I struggle to look at the object ball on strike. I know it sounds daft, but it doesn't feel comfortable and I always miss. So this is something I talked about in a recent video, and you'll see generally the advice from coaches will be to look at the object ball when you strike. It's actually something that I don't really like to talk about that much. I find it a bit of a contentious issue. And you get people talking about some players looking at the cue ball, some players look at the object ball. Now, I think the generic advice for most players would be, at the time that you strike the cue ball, look at the object ball. That's your target in the distance, so that's what you should be looking at. The way I always describe that to people is, imagine I put this red here a long way away from me. Imagine I put that red really far in the distance. Let's say I put it 200 metres away from me. Now, I would feel like in order to hit that red successfully, when I strike the cue ball, I need to be looking at that red. So I know I can hit the white ball because when I'm down on the shot, the white ball is right in front of me, and I've done my checks and I know I can hit that where I want. But if I wasn't looking at that red that was right in the distance, I feel in my mind I wouldn't be able to even hit that red, and I certainly wouldn't be able to hit it as accurately as I would like to. So that's why in my mind, the general advice is for players to be looking at the object ball when they strike. Now, obviously the distances in snooker aren't actually that big. That's just an exaggerated way of explaining it. And to some extent, when we get down to the table, we should have already done everything and got ourselves on line. So if I was to line up a shot like this, I'm already doing my aiming here like this. When I get down to the shot, I'm just checking my aiming, and it shouldn't really matter to some extent what I look at when I strike the ball. It should just be that I've already got myself on line, and then as long as I deliver the cue in a straight line, the ball should go in. But I think when you're starting out, if you're first beginning on your journey, I would say just try and look at the object ball, because that's what most professional players do. You look at some professional players, John Higgins, he looks like he probably looks at the cue ball just at the time of strike, and as he hits, he'll hit the cue ball and then very quickly look up to the object ball. But I think the generic advice is to do your feathers, look between the two, look between the white, the red, the white, the red. And now I'm just looking at the red now, just the red. And then I'll try and pop that ball. So that would be my advice. If you're somebody that feels like you're really, really struggling with that, it can always be, like I say, it's a bit of a problem talking about eye rhythms, because when you start suddenly analysing what exactly are my eyes looking at, are they looking at the white, are they looking at the red? You've put all these conscious thoughts in your head, you get a bit muddled up, and then you don't even feel like you can pot a ball at all, which is exactly what Steve was saying in his comment there. So I think if you're somebody that really struggles with it and you're finding that you're having success looking at the cue ball, I don't necessarily think there's a problem with that. There are some professionals that do that. Like I say, John Higgins is certainly one of them. But the general advice is, for new players, if you're just getting into it, if you haven't really got any eye rhythms set in place, make sure you're looking at the object ball at the time of strike. That would be my advice. If you're already someone that's been playing for a bit and you're finding you're having success by looking at the cue ball and it's throwing you out to look at the object ball, then carry on looking at the cue ball. So I hope that helps there, Steve. So second question here from Rohit Pratap, I think it was. I tried your technique of picking the angles while standing up rather than when down on the shot, which I realise that I normally do, and I missed by greater margins. Any tips on this aspect, please? So I think what that's all about there from Rohit there is he's saying that I talked about in one of my videos about snooker players are always picking out the angle when they're standing here. So they're trying to line the shot up, stand behind the line of aim, and pick out the angle that they want here. What Rohit is saying there is what he was doing was basically getting down to the shot and then trying to find the aim that he needed on the ball. There's a couple of reasons why that's bad. The first one is, generally you'll actually once you get used to it, you'll get a better view from this overhead position here, from this standing position of where you need to strike the object ball to make it go into the pocket. And the second problem is, if you're a player that gets down and then you're adjusting, you're twisting your body and you're not having a consistent setup on the shot, making it a lot harder to cue straight because you're not always in exactly the same position on the shot. When professional players get down to the shot, they've already picked this line here, and then they walk in exactly the same way. And I know my body now is the positions of my feet, my hips, the way I'm turning, where the cue is positioned. That is exactly the same on every single shot. It's nice and consistent. I haven't leaned over a bit to get a different angle, and I haven't moved the other way. I've got the exact same setup on the shot. So that's the reason why you do it standing up. Now for Rohit, because he's not used to doing that, and lots of players might feel the same, it might feel a bit odd to at first trying to pick the angle from here. But if you can start to do that, you will get better success. Now the last thing to say is there's almost two sections to aiming a shot. First one is here. Get a good feel for what does that look like. Do I think I'm going to pop that ball? You know, what's that angle look like to me there? That's the first part. The second part is when you do walk into the shot and get down, what does that look like now? Does it still look like you'll pop the ball? And get a good feel for it, and when you're ready you can play the shot and watch the object ball go to the pocket, and then you can move, and then you can get your feedback on those shots there. But I think you won't ever see professional players aiming once they're down on the table. So I think for someone like Rohit there, and for lots of players that have the same thing, try and get used to those two stages. What does it look like there? And then what does it look like when you're down on the shot? If ever, so if I just get this white ball again, if ever I go down to a shot like that, so if I go down to this shot and then I think, no, actually, that looks wrong, I'll stand up and I'll try and pick that line again, and then I'll get down to the shot when I'm happy, and then you can play the shot knowing that you've picked that different angle there. So, hope that helps there, Rohit, and for lots of other players as well. That was a good question there. Okay, next question here from Mr. T. So this one is, hey Steve, I play a lot of pool, always put my chin on the cue, but recently I let my head off the cue slightly, quite a distance. And I seem to play better. Should I stick to it or go back to the head on the cue? I also wear glasses. Any advice appreciated? So basically what Mr. T is saying here is that what he used to do is get down in his stance and get his chin, so the chin right down on the cue, which is what we would normally do. So when we get down on shots, that's a contact point you've got on the cue. You've got 4 contact points. One is your grip hand, one is your V there at the top, that's a contact point on the cue. The other one is the chin, that's going down as a contact point, and the last one is the cue against my chest there, so that's another contact point. Now, Mr. T there is saying that when he was playing before, he used to have his chin right down, and now he's started to get a little bit off the cue like that. And he also says that he wears glasses there. Now, it's difficult to know without knowing what type of glasses, so I see this a lot with players that they use their normal glasses and then they play snooker wearing the glasses that they would just wear for everyday playing. And it might be that that's what's causing the problem, because when you're using those normal glasses and your head is tilted, and I did a video about this recently, so if you haven't seen my video on snooker glasses, if you do a search Barton snooker glasses or correcting your vision, that video should come up. So when we're down on the shot, your head is tilted back. It's not looking straight like it normally would be, it's tilted. And if you're wearing normal glasses, it might be that a player is finding it difficult to see through the correct part of the lens. So when your head is right down on the cue, you might be struggling to see the correct part of the lens, and by just lifting the head slightly, it puts everything into focus and gets things nice and clear again. So without knowing whether he's using snooker glasses or not, that would be my guess, that maybe he's getting better vision and putting less strain on the neck by moving up a bit and being able to see through the correct part of the lens. So I think my advice there is, if you're not using snooker glasses, maybe look into getting some snooker glasses, because if you've only moved the chin off the cue for the reason that you're finding it a bit easier to sight the shot, it'll be better to get proper snooker glasses, correct your vision, so that you can comfortably get your chin down. And it's always a better way of sighting the shot if your chin is right down on the cue. It's harder, isn't it? I mean, and it's an extreme example, but it's much harder for me to check I'm online here than it is if I'm right down here like that. It's like shooting a rifle, isn't it? So I think that would be my advice there. If you're not wearing snooker glasses, look into that, you'll get better vision. Okay, last question here from Tim Stays. He says, the more I think about technique, the worse it gets. I have a big problem with cueing around the chest. The grip hand goes outwards, so he's going outwards around the body. 3 weeks ago I made a 141 total clearance. 1 week later I can barely make 20. So welcome to the world of snooker player. That's common for all of us. But anyway, so Tim, my advice here would be, you need to work out whether, when that hand is coming around the chest, first of all, is it happening slightly after the shot? Because if it's happening after the shot, it's not necessarily a problem. You might get quite a few players that, because your hand naturally comes through and then it will hit the chest and then it might go round, but by the time it's going round, the cue ball has long been struck and the cue ball is already gone, and then the hand comes round the chest slightly. And then there's also some technical things that you can try and have a look at that will help you. So one of them is, when you're down on a shot, you want to try and swing the hip out the way slightly. So this hip, instead of it being straight and pointing straight up, I want to try and swing that across. So I've got more room here now, look. So a lot more room before my hand is going to hit my chest. So if I just go next to the cue ball, so by moving that leg and hip out the way, I've now got lots of room so my hand can come past the white and then it's hitting my chest. So it can come through nice and straight without going offline. That'll be a good thing for you to try and do if you're finding that you're having trouble because the chest is in the way. So making sure that, like I say, instead of the hip being there, move the hip out the way, get that twisted over, and that'll give you some more room there so that you can go right through to the chest with your cue. But as I say, the other thing to be really careful of is whether it's even particularly a problem. You'll see, even with lots of professionals, if sometimes the camera is pointing right down the line of the shot, you'll see that as the player delivers, the cue might come slightly off the line of the shot. It looks like the cue has come to the side, but the ball will still be potted because the cue was delivered in a nice straight line, and then just at the end it just came away from the body slightly. And then the other thing to think, and I'm always advising players to do this, if you're trying to make a technical change like that, do it on something nice and simple. So like I've got a red to the middle here. And then also practice your cue action next to the white ball, a complete cue action, very slowly. So I'm going to go down next to this white ball here. So I'm where I would normally be. Now I'm going to practice, how do I get this back nice and straight? And then how do I get it back all the way to my chest, nice and straight? And that's my finishing point. So I've got plenty of follow through there from where the white would be. And it's going through nice and straight into my chest. So what does that feel like to do that? I don't think enough players do that slowly to get used to it first. You imagine you were learning to play a musical instrument, like learning to play the piano. I would say at first, you would learn the song and you would do it very slowly, and you can just kind of play a tune. As you would get more comfortable over the weeks, you start to play it up to full speed. Now, just because we're controlling this cue very accurately, it's no different really. We want to have really good understanding of how the hand works, what the arm is doing, how you keep the cue flat, how you get it all the way to the chest, making sure the wrist isn't rotating. And then once you're comfortable with that, then you can start saying, right, okay, so I'm down on a shot now, I've got myself on line, and then this has got to come back and through to my chest. And practice that on some shots like that where you feel like you're not cueing across. So you go down to the shot and then you go back and play your shot to your chest. So those are the key things for that. There's only one other thing to mention on that, potentially steering balls in on certain type of shots. So you might find that, you know, if I've got a red here, for example, and I've got a bit of an angle on the red, you might just find it's a habit in the action to aim up a little bit thick and then almost steer the arm across the shot a little bit and let the arm go away. But those are the key things, Tim. I hope that's useful. I hope this video was useful for everybody else as well. I'm going to try and do more of these videos where I look through some of the common questions I'm getting and questions people leave. And I'm going to try and do some videos like this where I just talk to camera like this, answer the questions, try and give you as much information as I possibly can. So on this video, if you want to, If anyone's got any questions, things they're struggling with, leave them in the comments of this video below, and I'll try and answer them over the next couple of weeks and do another video exactly like this one. As always, thanks very much to everybody for watching. I really appreciate all the support. If you haven't subscribed, please do consider subscribing to the channel. That just helps me to keep this content coming as often as possible. Remember to give the video a like. You can support me on Patreon as well for anyone that wants to offer a bit of extra support so I can dedicate more time to filming and editing these videos. And also, if you're interested in any personal one-to-one coaching, in the description is my website, www.bartonsnooker.co.uk. I'm working with players one-to-one on the table all the time, helping them improve their technique, shot selection, break building. So for anyone that's interested in that, get in touch with that as well. So thanks a lot for watching, everybody. Cheers.